Well, as far as I know the board is here. Our assembled guests that are going to be participating in some way, shape, or form are here as panelists tonight. That's what the new names of people actually participating. For those of you in attendance, it's a little bit more, it's more of a webinar, so please use the raising hands when we're asking for those that are in public comment. Other than that, you are obviously welcome and appreciate you being here to witness the public meeting of the trustees tonight. Being that we are in a reorganizational mode with one of our members not on the board, or prior members not on the board, and having a new member on the board, first of all, I would like to congratulate Mr. Tapia and Mrs. Lawson. I was able to swear in and re-swear in last night for their new terms. Congratulations, Mr. Tapia, on winning your seat here at the Fairfax School District. I look forward to working with you all. And so to start the meeting and run it until the board has reorganized is the clerk, who is Victoria. So Victoria, obviously you're up.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with welcoming of the guests. Welcome to the meeting of the Fairfax Elementary School District Board of Trustees. The meeting is held in compliance with the State of California and County of Kern Sunshine laws. We have placed on the agenda to hear from members of the public who attend our meetings. It is good if you call the superintendent before the meeting and have a place on the agenda for any issues you want to talk about. However, if you haven't done that, you may fill out a form provided for you and give it to the board before the meeting begins. Each item on the agenda can be discussed by members of the public. 20 minutes are provided for each agenda item. Several people can speak during these 20 minutes. We do hope that you in attendance will refrain from visiting during the meeting, as this can be disconcerting to the board members. Thank you for being here. Okay, so welcome everybody, and welcome to Mr. Tapia and our incumbent Virginia. So any public comments?
Yes, I did receive a request for me to read a public comment that was sent to me. It was assigned and confirmed that Jennifer Spalding, Wendy Gama, Marisol Uribe, Victoria Garza, and Lauren Rodriguez did ask me, these were all signatories to this statement, and wanted me to read it as public comment. It says, dear members of the board, we are writing this letter in regards to item, I'm assuming I-1 on the agenda concerning the censure of a board member. As a complainant, we're happy to see that this resolution has been drawn up and fully agree with the findings that were made by the attorney. We would like to ask the board to consider the people who have been the victims of harassment and bullying in this incident when voting on this item. While it was found that we are not in a protected class, specifically protected from harassment, we still believe that it is the job of the board to protect both students and employees of the district from any type of harassment. It took a lot of courage for the complainants to come forward and address the board about issues we were having, and we would just like to know that our voices have been heard and that we will never have to go through this again. By approving all terms in Resolution 2021-08, you will show us that our complaints and concerns were not taken lightly, and our feelings of safety and emotional well-being as employees of the district are important to the board. I also ask that you keep this resolution in mind when voting for board leadership roles. It is also my hope that Mr. Moland can learn and grow from this incident. I don't believe he is a bad board member. He's just misguided by his own personal issues. By focusing on the students and the community rather than publicly slandering the district, I know that there are many wonderful things that can be accomplished. I would like to ask him to take a step back and reevaluate his mission as a board member. Now is not a time for retaliation. Now is a time for redemption. Thank you. And there was one other person who did request to be acknowledged in the public comment, and that was Mr. Moreno. And so I have, I guess the board will recognize Mr. Moreno. Is that correct, Virginia? Or Victoria, I'm sorry?
Yes. Go. Mr. Moreno?
All right, Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
There's a bad echo.
Yeah.
Is there any way you can take care of that or no? Good. All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. All right, well, let me quickly be respectful of the 3 minutes because I imagine someone has me on the clock. Just want to quickly say, good afternoon, board, Virginia, Victoria, Alma, in specifically. Quickly want to just say thank you to the three of you and all the individuals who've given me the support over the years while in the role of trustee and as board president of this district. I hope I served you well and met your expectations, not only as a representative of the district, but also as a person. Doing some reflection, I hope that you all recognize that over the years, this district and its employees have made significant progress with improving student outcomes, with parent engagement, with school safety, and the use of technology. I can literally go on and talk about the accomplishments of this district, but again, my time is limited, and again, I imagine someone has me on the clock. But as I, transition, away from my responsibilities on the board and to those of a community member, I do ask that you protect the progress we've made, and you continue to set, priorities which do focus on student achievement, addressing, social disparities, implementation of new technology, health and safety of the students and employees, and et cetera, and et cetera. But however, though, my biggest ask, though, and it's a huge ask, is that you really restore the integrity and the professionalism of this board, which has, single-handedly been eroded by the actions of one board member, specifically Mr. Mullen. Over the last 2 years, he's conducted himself as a tyrant. He's operated in a really gross negligence manner by disregarding board policy. He's took action, or he's acted upon his own objectives against the board's direction. And he really misused his status and authority as a board member to threaten, to harass, to bully employees of this district who essentially didn't, support his decisions or display this submissiveness to him. All of which has been corroborated in the independent investigation report that's given to the board. And you've heard, prior to me, you've heard the statement made by the district office. But let me just quickly further remind you that time after time, you've witnessed his erratic behavior, his unstable behavior has escalated, it's progressively gotten worse. This is not just me saying that, this is evident by the number of employee complaints submitted to the district and your own interactions with him. You were all part of meetings, you've all received texts, emails from Mr. Mullen. He's been shown to be a liar, mentally incapable of sitting on the board and to make decisions that impact, the students and livelihood of this district. So with that, today you do have a fiduciary responsibility, to put an end to Mr. Mullen's tyranny by adopting the resolution that is on today's agenda. The employees and the community of this district need to know if you support them, or if you support Mr. Mullen. So closing this out, I highly encourage you to choose the latter and to pass the resolution that censors Mr. Mullen and that separates this board from him. So that this district can begin this healing process. I mean, they've heard it for the last couple of years, and it took a lot of courage for people to stand up and expose themselves to this. So I think it's important that you take action on that. So if you are so inclined, I would also encourage you to adopt the resolution and then give authority to the employees to not entertain Mr. Mullen and refer him back to the board president anytime he's not following any portion of
Oh, no,
this
we're,
resolution.
we're.
So thank you for that.
Yes,
Thank you for that. Good luck and carry on.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Moreno.
Mr. Moreno.
That was all of the public comment that I had received, Ms. Cornell.
Okay, so no more public comments, okay. Then let's go ahead and proceed over to the annual organization of the board.
Yes, the board tonight, first of all, if it's okay, can we approve the agendas?
Oh, yes.
I don't have any changes to either of the agendas that are running concurrently tonight. So if the board
Okay.
can approve the agenda as presented, then we can.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do the approval of the agenda.
So, yes, we're approving the annual organizational special board meeting agenda and the regular board meeting agenda.
We need a motion for this?
Yes.
Yes, can I get a motion?
Yes, I so move.
Okay, Virginia, and a second? Can I get a second?
Mr. Tapia, Mrs. Rios, Mr. Moland, is there going to be a second coming?
Second.
Alma?
Second.
Was that a,
I had Alma.
that was Alma? Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I heard
Okay,
five.
aye. Yes. Okay, that's 5-0.
Somebody, I think
For the-
somebody has, somebody is logged in, two people are logged in the same room.
No, I'm so. My phone.
Okay. So now you want to continue on with the organization of the board.
Yes, please. Let's go ahead and continue with the annual organization of the board. So we'll proceed with the election of board roles.
Yes, tonight the board is asked to self-elect a president and clerk, and then designate a trustee representative and alternate, and then appoint myself as the secretary to the board.
Okay. Anybody would like to nominate?
I would like to nominate for the board president, please. And I'm hoping it's with her permission, Victoria. I would appreciate all of your hard work and stability, and I would like to nominate you for board president, please.
Okay, I will accept that, Virginia. Thank you. Anybody would like to second that? Or any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Palmer.
Okay,
I second the motion.
okay. All in favor of Mr. Moland?
Can I say aye to aye for myself?
Yes, you can vote for yourself.
Okay, aye.
So, by the way, I need to remind, since we're on a virtual here, we need to have roll call votes. So, once we've got a motion in a second, if it's okay, I will call for the vote, if that's okay. So, we had a nomination by Virginia Lawson to Victoria, and she accepted. We had a nomination for Palmer Moland by Alma Rios, and Mr. Moland accepted. And so I also heard that we had a couple of seconds. And so I had a Jose Tapia as a second to Mr. Mullen. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
Okay. And so I had a motion, or well, we had a nomination by Alma, a second by Tapia. So it seems that we're, Victoria, you called for a vote on Moland. So
Yes.
all in favor of Palmer Moland being the board president for this term, I need a roll call vote. So Alma Rios, you are aye or a nay?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Tapia, aye or nay?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Moland, aye or nay?
Aye.
All right. Victoria Cornell, aye or nay?
Nay.
And Virginia Lawson, aye or nay?
Nay.
Nay. Motion passes for Mr. Moland to be board president 3-2. And at this point in time, well, if it's okay, we'll finish the election of roles and then let Mr. Moland continue on, or do you want to continue on? How do you want to do this, Victoria?
We can continue on.
So now we're designating a trustee a clerk. We have to elect a clerk. That person sits as the board president if the president's not able to conduct the duties. And do we have anybody wanting to?
I would like to nominate Alma Rios as the clerk.
Okay. Ms.
I
Rios,
second the motion.
well, Ms. Rios, are you going to accept that nomination?
I accept.
Okay.
I second the motion.
Okay. Tapia, second.
Yes.
Okay. Seems like we have a motion and a second. Is roll call vote. So Moland,
Yes.
Tapia,
Yes.
Cornell,
Nay.
Lawson,
No.
and Rios.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a 3-2 vote for Rios to be the clerk, vice president. And now we are needing to designate trustee representatives and an alternate. So it's really not a vote. It's really coming down to who do we designate, the trustee representative and alternate.
I would like to designate for the designee representative to be Jose Tapia.
I accept.
All right. Is there anybody else that wants to discuss it or add somebody else for consideration?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Virginia Lawson.
Okay. These are designations, so I guess you could kind of informally vote along that line, but it's not recognized as a vote. So we have Virginia Lawson and Jose Tapia. Did I hear a second for either of the two or both?
I'll vote for Jose Tapia.
Okay. So,
And I vote for Jose Tapia as well.
okay, so it sounds to me that's a 3. So if the board is so inclined, it's going to be Jose Tapia for the trustee representative. Okay, and an alternate. So who would be the alternate?
Virginia.
Virginia? Virginia, you accept that?
Okay.
Anybody else good, bad, indifferent? Okay. And then finally, appointing the secretary of the board as the district superintendent. We just need to make sure that that is for the record. Last thing here is the board, we need to approve the signatories. The signatories continue to be the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, director of fiscal services, the board president, and the district board clerk. Are we agreeing with that?
Yes.
Okay, so I need a motion and a second.
I'll
I'll
make
make
a
that.
motion.
Oh, okay.
Who had the motion?
I made the motion.
Okay. Was there a second?
Second.
And
Second.
so I had Alma as the second. I need a roll call vote. So Mr. Moland,
Aye.
Rios,
Aye.
Tapia,
Aye.
and Lawson.
No,
Okay, and Cornell.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what it was again one more time?
We're voting on approving the following district representatives as authorized signatories. The district superintendent, the district assistant superintendent, the district director of fiscal services, the district board president, and the district board clerk.
Oh, it's a no,
Okay,
sorry.
so I have a 3-2 vote, and that motion would pass. The next one comes down to a board meeting schedule. The board has to affix the regular board meetings for the upcoming term. Keeping with the second Thursday as our regular slate of meetings, those dates have been listed on the agenda. Typically, they are held in the boardroom at the 1500 South Fairfax Road. And typically, all meetings would start at 6 p.m. We have not been starting at 6 p.m. as we've been virtual. So now would be the time to say we can, and as you're aware, you can change a board meeting. It just, this is the slate as you're going to publish them. And then if you have to change them, you have to publish the change. So kind of our practice, but now would be the time if the board wants to set another date and time and place.
Yes.
Are you good with the second Thursdays to continue?
Yes. Although our normal time, can you repeat what our normal time would be for next year?
Normal times, if we stayed with our past press, with 6 p.m. on the second Thursday of the month.
I agree with 6 o'clock.
I agree with 6 o'clock as well.
Okay.
I agree.
Mr. Tapia, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so 6 p.m.s are good. Is the second Thursday still good?
Yes.
And so the
Yes.
second Thursday of the month
yes,
at 6 p.m. at our board location is still okay for the board. We need a motion and a second.
First
I make the
motion.
motion.
I have Alma Rios and Palmer Moland. I need a roll
Yes, second motion.
call vote. Mr. Moland,
Aye.
Rios,
Aye.
Tapia,
Aye.
Coronel,
Aye.
and Virginia Lawson.
I,
Okay, and that conducts or concludes the organizational meeting agenda. With that, Mr. Mullins, you'll take over the meeting as president of the board. I'll let you know that the attorneys online did request to be placed up as quickly as they could. So we're asking that the item for board policy 1 be moved up to now so that we can handle that issue and let them leave the meeting.
Okay. I agree to allow them to move that up.
Okay?
I need a motion for that.
No, you don't need a motion for that. You can just agree to move that up.
I agree to move it up.
Okay, very good. Every one of the board members should have received in their email today a procedure for this item that the lawyers were suggesting the board follows to for all, for ease of minutes and for ease of, for fairness. So did everybody receive that? Mr. Mullen especially, do you have that? I guess I'm going to have to ask the question, Mr. Herndon, with Mr. Mullen being the board president and Mr. Mullen being the center of the conversation on this. We should have the.
I would pass the gavel. I would request to pass the gavel for this particular item to the vice chair,
Okay.
Madam Alma Rios.
Okay, sounds good. So Ms. Rios, did you receive the procedure for censure motion?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So in the role of the board president now, are you understanding you're gonna want to kind of read the script and go through the process? And in the process, I guess I would introduce Mr. Herndon from Schools Legal Service to kind of set the stage and bring background to the item.
So good afternoon, good evening, Mr. Coleman, board members. So I'll kind of handle this first piece. We're looking at item I1, discuss and consider adoption of proposed resolution to censure trustee for abusive and inappropriate conduct stemming from employee complaints. So just by way of background, at a special meeting on November 12th, 2020, the board, or at that time, four members of the board, directed legal counsel to prepare a proposed censure resolution concerning findings of abusive and inappropriate conduct made by an independent attorney investigator following an investigation of complaints from employees and an association president against trustee Palmer Moland. Because Mr. Moland is the subject of the complaints, he will not participate in the board discussion and voting on the issue, but if he has any comments, he can certainly make those during the public hearing that will follow. And so because members of the public attending won't have had an opportunity to review the resolution, we would ask that the board president, or in this case, the vice chair or clerk, Ms. Rios, read the text of the resolution.
Can you please read it, Mr. Coleman, because I'm driving.
Okay. Alrighty, so I will read the resolution as presented. It is, just for everybody's understanding, 9 pages. So here we go. The Board of Trustees of the Fairfax School District hereby issues this public censure with intent of disassociating itself from the expressing disapproval of Trustee Palmer Moland's violation of board policies, administrative regulations, and bylaws as follows. Whereas Trustee Moland was a former classified employee of the district before his election to the board in 2018. He was sworn into office as a trustee in December of 2018. On August 5th, 2020 and August 17th, 2020, district received 2 complaints from a group of classified confidential employees and the president of the local chapter of the Classified Employees Union, CSEA Chapter 162, alleging inappropriate, harassing, and or abusive conduct toward them and other classified employees by Trustee Moland. And C, district retained an independent attorney investigator to investigate the allegations raised by the classified employees. Trustee Moland was interviewed twice during the investigation and given the opportunity to respond to the employees' allegations. While the investigator did not find evidence that Trustee Moland treated employees wrongfully due to any protected status, such as race or age under the Fair Employment and Housing Act, the investigator did find substantial evidence that Trustee Moland engaged in abusive or bullying conduct toward classified employees in violation of district policy and further engaged in behaviors in violation of board bylaws. In addition, with respect to Trustee Moland's honesty, the investigator seriously questioned Trustee Moland's credibility, concluding, based on his interview statements and evidence provided to the investigator, including Trustee Moland's Facebook posts, that Trustee Moland was purposely untruthful, misleading, evasive, and duplicitous. And D, Government Code 12950.1 H2 and Administrative Regulations 4119.11.21 and .31 define abusive conduct as conduct undertaken with malice that a reasonable person would find hostile or offensive, and that it is not related to an employee's legitimate business interests, including performance standards. Examples of abusive conduct may include repeated infliction of verbal abuse, such as the use of derogatory remarks, insults, epithets, verbal or physical conduct that a reasonable person would find threatening, intimidating, or humiliating, or the gratuitous sabotage or undermining of a person's work performance. Abusive conduct can negatively affect the work environment, including a reduction in productivity and employee morale. Abusive conduct may also lead to employee claims of unlawful harassment and other potential unlawful employment and unfair labor practices. The board takes very seriously any abuse of power or abuse conduct on the part of a board member towards students, employees, and families of the district. And E, Board Policy 9200 provides that the board is the unit of authority over the district and that a board member has no individual authority. Further, unless agreed to by the board as a whole, individual members of the board shall not exercise any administrative responsibility with respect to the schools or command the services of any school employee. Individual board members shall submit requests for information to the superintendent. Board members shall refer board-related correspondence to the superintendent for forwarding to the board for placement on the board's agenda as appropriate. Individual board members do not have authority to resolve complaints and should refer any complainant to the superintendent or designees so that the complaint may appropriately be handled through district processes. Additionally, a board member whose child is attending a district school, should be aware of his or her role as a board member when interacting with district employees about his or her child. The position of a board member may unduly influence or inhibit the performance of school personnel. F, Board Bylaw 9005.1 recognizes that the board will govern in a dignified, professional, and respectful manner. Board members are to respect the distinctions between board and staff roles and refrain from performing management functions of the superintendent and staff. Questions and concerns raised by staff, students, parents, or the community to individual board members are to be communicated directly to the superintendent. Board members are to work with all board members and the superintendent as a team, devoted to students and dedicated to making all members of the team successful. Board members must adhere to a high standard of moral, ethical, and legal conduct, and their behavior must serve as an example to the youth and families of the district. And G, the board recognizes the rights of board members to freely express their views and encourages open discussion of issues during board meetings in ways that promote the board's ability to govern the district. Board members should recognize, however, that when speaking to the community and others, their statements may be perceived as reflecting the views and positions of the board and district. As provided in Board Bylaw 9010, board members have a responsibility to identify personal viewpoints as such and not as the viewpoint of the board. Further, all public statements authorized to be made on behalf of the board shall be made by the board president or, if appropriate, by the superintendent or other designated representatives. H, the board is sincerely committed to positive, safe, and supportive working conditions for district employees. The board has delegated to the superintendent the primary responsibility for overseeing the district's personnel system. It is the superintendent or designee who assigns, supervises, and evaluates the work of all employees in accordance with effective accountability systems approved by the board. Oversight of district employees is not the role of an individual board member. And the board is further committed to upholding board policies, administrative regulations, and bylaws, open, honest, and respectful communication and conduct, and adherence to state and federal laws governing the board's actions and behaviors. And during the investigation of the 2 complaints by classified employees, Trustee Mullen stated to the investigator that he received post-election training in the prevention of sexual harassment, which includes abusive conduct training and the Brown Act. Trustee Mullen also stated he completed a 5-day training through the California School Boards Association, CSBA, known as the Masters on Governance Training, and confirmed to the investigator that CSBA is a recognized resource and authority on board policies and administrative regulations. K, During the course of the investigation, the investigator interviewed multiple witnesses, including Trustee Moland, on 2 separate occasions, and reviewed documents provided by the witnesses relevant to the investigation. The investigator sustained or concluded that the evidence supported by a preponderance, i.e. the evidence on one side is more than the evidence on the other side, the following allegations of the complainants. That A, Trustee Moland engaged in abusive conduct toward classified employees in violation of district policy by approaching classified staff, particularly district office staff, in a demanding and aggressive manner. Witnesses gave credible accounts of numerous incidents where Trustee Moland scrutinized their work, failed to follow protocols, and created extra work in an already busy office. Multiple employees also described their sense that Trustee Moland wanted to catch them in some kind of misconduct. The district office staff descriptions of Trustee Moland included bully, pushy, frustrating, demanding, manipulative, controlling, aggressive, hostile, disrespectful, hurtful, shaming, insistent, stressful, and mentally draining. The MOT staff described Trustee Moland similarly. In comparison, witnesses described the other board members as following district protocols, positive and supportive. The investigation found credible evidence to support a nexus between Trustee Moland's conduct and his animosity toward the superintendent and the MOT director in retaliation for discipline Trustee Moland received in 2015 as a classified employee when he took a district bus to transport his basketball team without district authorization. Multiple witnesses stated Trustee Moland expressed his desire to get rid of the superintendent, MOT director, and another district employee. The investigator concluded that Trustee Moland's constrained interpretation of the superintendent's responsibilities further supported this finding. 2, directly and repeatedly asking classified employees questions that Trustee Moland should be directing to the superintendent. The investigation found that Trustee Moland's demanding, unprofessional, and persistent questioning and requests for information and documents, particularly from district office staff and even after being directed to the superintendent, was reasonably offensive and intimidating to the employees. This conduct was also disruptive of the legitimate business operations of the district. The investigator concluded that Trustee Moland's behavior was more egregious because of its nexus with Trustee Moland's expressed desire to remove the superintendent from his position. 3, inappropriately criticizing the work performance of a confidential classified employee to another classified employee. Board Policy 4319.23, Administrative Regulations 4112.6, 4212.6, and 4312.6, and Board Bylaw 9011 recognize the confidentiality inherent in personnel information. While the investigation disclosed only one incident, the investigator concluded that Trustee Moland's conduct was especially egregious because it concerned a district employee's alleged substandard job performance, violated multiple district policies, and displayed a level of malice or animus toward the employee in an effort to deflect the other employee's criticism of Trustee Moland. The investigation found the resulting hurt, embarrassment, and offense felt by the criticized employee was reasonable given the disparity in power and status between Trustee Moland and the employee he was gossiping about. 4, stating that classified employees in the district office failed to wear face masks at work during public comment at a board meeting and in social media posts. The investigation found that Trustee Moland's misconstrued prior board action and the superintendent's directives in the wearing of face masks in the workplace and attempted to assume an administrative authority belonging to the superintendent. The investigation found Trustee Moland's derogatory remarks especially egregious given the lack of due diligence to gain accurate information concerning the directives given to employees about face mask wearing and the power disparity between Trustee Moland and the district office staff. Trustee Moland failed to respect the distinction between his role as a board member and the role of the superintendent. The policing of employees using face masks falls outside his role as a trustee. The employees were reasonably offended by Trustee Moland's derogatory and shaming remarks. In parentheses, social media posting included the statement, #shameful. Given Trustee Moland's lack of accurate information in his position as a trustee. 5, reading an unsigned, undated letter addressed to Dr. P. Moland, regarding dissatisfaction with classified employees during public comment. The investigation found merit in the association president's concern. Board Bylaw 9200 requires board members to refer board-related correspondence to the superintendent for forwarding to the board for placement on the board's agenda as appropriate. As with any other board member, Trustee Mullen has no authority to resolve complaints individually. Board Bylaw 9005.1 also requires board members to communicate directly with the superintendent whenever parent or community concerns or questions are raised, which the evidence showed Trustee Mullen did not do. The investigator further concluded that Trustee Mullen's actions were egregious, offensive, and threatening and humiliating. 6, monitoring classified employees during their performance of their job duties, following school buses, videotaping or photographing classified employees at work, or reporting classified employees' alleged tardiness to supervisors. The investigation found that Trustee Mullen performed management or administrative functions as a trustee in a manner motivated by his self-interest to discredit the superintendent and the MOT director in violation of Board Bylaws 9200 and 9005.1. Trustee Mullen's stated reasons for his conduct were found not credible, as his actions were motivated by self-interest to discredit the superintendent and MOT director. The investigator determined that Trustee Mullen's conduct was egregious. Trustee Mullen's unusual behavior upset and distracted the bus drivers, and due to his position, reasonably intimidated them. Further, the investigator noted that Trustee Mullen's conduct may impair his ability to carry out his responsibilities as a board member in hearings and appeals of personnel matters. Board Bylaw 9000 presumes neutrality of the individual board members. The investigator found it foreseeable that Trustee Mullen's usurpation of the administrative function may create conflicts preventing Trustee Mullen from serving in the board's judicial neutral decision-making, in parentheses, capacity. And we would point L, the investigator found on multiple occasions during his 2 interviews that Trustee Mullen gave inconsistent and clearly inaccurate statements despite his agreement to tell the truth. For example, when asked if Trustee Mullen physically inspected the district buses, Trustee Mullen told the investigator he may have inspected the buses with the MOD director. He was unsure. Later in his interview, Trustee Mullen described the district buses as unclean. The statement was inconsistent with his previous statement that he was unsure he had physically inspected the buses while at the MOT yard. Trustee Mullen also represented to the investigator he had worked as a full-time bus driver with the district for about 1 year. When he and the superintendent later produced a chronology of Trustee Mullen's employment with the district, he had only worked a total of 39.75 hours as a bus driver. The investigator concluded that Trustee Mullen was purposefully untruthful during his interview in an effort to support his contention that the MOT director allowed him to use a district bus whenever he wanted, and thus his previous discipline for unauthorized use of a district bus was inappropriate. The investigator concluded that Trustee Mullen's interview statements, Facebook postings, and exhibits contained multiple statements that negatively affected his credibility. Some were clearly not truthful, while others were evasive, duplicitous, and erroneous. Point M, in addition to the abusive conduct toward the classified employees described above, the board heard from KFTA Vice President at its November 12, 2020 meeting alleging similar abusive behavior by Trustee Mullen. Trustee Mullen posted on social media that KFTA Vice President, in support of 2 board members for re-election to the board, engaged in illegal political activity, and that in parentheses, quotes, all eyes are watching. Due to his position as a trustee, this made the employee reasonably uncomfortable and feeling harassed. On investigation by the district, it was determined that the Trustee Mullen's factual account was inaccurate. This conduct is further evidence of persistent violation of a board bylaw, regulations, and policy by Trustee Mullen and his careless disregard for the truth. Such conduct must be immediately corrected, and Trustee Mullen's abusive conduct toward district employees continues to fail to meet the professional standards expected of an elected official or the standards expected of any district employee or trustee. and violated district policies, administrative regulations, and board bylaws, including but not limited to administrative regulation 4119.11, .21, and .31, board bylaws 9000, 9005.1, 9010, and 9200, and board policy 5319.23, 4319.23. Further, Trustee Mullins' furtive effort to catch employees or otherwise discredit or shame them to advance his own self-interest or for retaliatory or retributive, I can't say this word, retributive purposes is egregious behavior that negatively affects staff morale and disrupts the mission of the district in providing a safe and welcoming environment for the students to learn and succeed. As also provided in Board Policy 4030, the board is determined to provide a safe, positive environment where all district employees are assured of a full and equal employment access and opportunities, protection from harassment and intimidation, and freedom of any fear of reprisal or retribution for asserting their employment rights in accordance with law. Trustee Mullins' abusive conduct interferes with the district's mission. And O, censure is a collective, formal, and public condemnation or denouncement of an individual member's conduct or behavior that violates laws or policies. It is a formal public act of disapproval of, as well as disassociation from, a member's unacceptable behavior. So now, therefore, be it resolved as follows. 1, the board does hereby censure, disavow, and formally express its disapproval of and disassociation from the conduct of Trustee Mullins described above. 2, the board does hereby direct Trustee Mullins to review and comply with board policies, regulations, and bylaws. Trustee Mullins is further directed to comply with federal and state laws, including laws that prohibit retaliation and cease and desist from engaging in abusive conduct and disrespectful and unprofessional treatment of district employees, students, fellow trustees, and members of the public. 3, Trustee Mullins is instructed to further the mission of the district by providing a safe and welcoming environment for students to learn and succeed, as well as safe and positive work environment for district employees. 4, Trustee Mullins is reminded that it is not his job to direct the day-to-day operations of the district, and he is directed not to usurp the role of the superintendent or any other administrative or management function. Unless agreed to by board action, Trustee Mullins is directed not to exercise any administrative responsibility with respect to the schools or make demands or requests of any district employee. All reasonable requests for information shall be made to the superintendent at reasonable times mutually agreed to with the superintendent. Trustee Mullins shall be respectful of the superintendent's time. Any board-related correspondence shall be referred to the superintendent for forwarding to the board for placement on the agenda as appropriate. Any complaints received shall also be referred to the superintendent. 5, Trustee Mullins is directed to follow all protocols for district school site or facility visits. Trustee Mullins shall wait to enter any school site or district facility until accompanied by a site representative. 6, the board does hereby remove Trustee Mullins from any committee or leadership position on the board until Trustee Mullins successfully completes effective governance and school laws and regulations training from a district-approved program and demonstrates a commitment to abide by board bylaws, regulations, policies, laws, and suspends Trustee Mullins from representing the district and the board at public functions in any official capacity, including but not limited to school ceremonies, fundraisers, conferences, student events, and community events. 7, the board will reevaluate Trustees Mullins' conduct and commitment to honest and effective governance at a public meeting following successful completion of an effective governance and school laws and regulations training program to determine whether he has appropriately complied with the direction given in this resolution. And the board will determine whether or not to reinstate Trustee Mullins in any leadership role or committee. 8, notwithstanding the foregoing recommendations and directives, and due to the credibility concerns raised from the investigation, The board recommends that Trustee Mullen consider resigning from the board to allow this board to continue its mission of creating a safe learning and work environment worthy of the district students, family, and employees. 9, in the event that Trustee Mullen chooses to remain on the board strongly recommends that Trustee Mullen seek the assistance of an executive or leadership development coach. A qualified and professional executive or leadership development coach can assist Trustee Mullen in reaching self-awareness, insight, understanding, and alignment of behaviors consistent with board policies, administrative regulations, and bylaws, as well as the mission of the district. Due to Trustee Mullen's intentional misconduct and demonstrated lack of credibility, Trustee Mullen would be solely responsible for the costs and expense of an executive coach. Should Trustee Mullen commit himself to the use of an experienced and qualified executive coach and board determines that coaching proves effective, the board may in its discretion reimburse the Trustee Mullen for the cost of one or more coaching sessions. And then 10, Trustee Mullen is on notice that a failure to comply with board policies, administrative regulations, bylaws, or the directives of this resolution will result in the board's refusal to indemnify Trustee Mullen for any claim or actions resulting from his conduct to the extent allowed by law. Passed and adopted by the Board of Trustees of the Fairfax School District at a regular meeting held on December 15th, 2020 by the following vote or abstention of each member present, and then it would call for a roll call vote. So that is the resolution that is on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Again, that is the resolution that the board directed us to bring back for this meeting based on the findings of the independent investigator. So the next phase would be the opening of the public hearing. So Mrs. Rios, are you able to take over that portion now? Or?
Oh, yes, yes. So if there's any comments or?
Yeah, Ms. Rios, there's a script that was sent. We're on number 2, the opening the public hearing. Did you receive that procedure document on your email? I can read the script if you would like.
Oh, yeah, yes, please read it.
Okay. So Ms. Rios, the board president has deferred to you, and I am at your request reading that at this time, the board will hold a public hearing to consider the evidence and conclusions reached by the investigator and evidence from the board and the public related to the proposed censure resolution. Let the record reflect that the public hearing was opened at 5:25 p.m. Following the public hearing, the board may vote to adopt the resolution of censure as proposed or as modified by the board. Ms. Rios, are you now calling for any comments from members of the public in which Mr. Mullen is included? So if anybody wants from the attendees wishes to address the board in public comment on this item, raise your hand. And I should be able to see that. I have 2 so far in public comment, so I'm going to recognize Miss Marissa Wood. Miss Wood, you are good to go.
Good evening, and I appreciate all of your time. I have been with the Fairfax School District for 20 years. I think most of you know me, know my dedication to the students, to the families, and to the staff. And I just encourage you all to please do the right thing for our school, for our students, for our staff, and look at the evidence that was presented to you and understand that it's your obligation to vote in a way that represents all of our district, everyone in our district, not just one person. This is not an attack, but a plea for what is good for our students and staff and families. And again, I beg you, I plead with you to please vote your conscience and look at the evidence. Thank you so very much.
Okay, thank you. And we have Dave Walker has requested to speak. Hold on for 1 second here. There you go, Dave. You should be good to go.
On behalf of the 130 teachers and class certificated staff that's represented by the current Fairfax Teachers Association, we would ask that the board members adopt this resolution of censure for Trustee Palmer Moreland. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, let me see. I've got one more somewhere here.
I know that my hand is
Yeah,
raised.
I'm going over to panelists right now, sir. Yep, you're the only one here, so Mr. Mullin, you're good to go.
I just want to say, I'm a proud employee. I was a proud employee of Fairfax School District, and I care a lot about our community, and I care a lot about our schools. One of the main reasons why I enrolled my own child in the school is because I thought so highly of our schools. I try to show up to many events to support our students, such as AVID. And whenever I'm invited, as far as like STEM, when I was invited to Zephyr, I participated in their CSI STEM program, just as Virginia Avenue. When I went, I learned how to make snow and had a great time with the students, with the dinosaurs and just different things. And my whole mentality here is to grow and to move forward. I have taken office 3 times. 1, when I entered into the Navy Reserve. 2, when I entered into another government position. And 3, when I entered into Fairfax School District. I wish I would have had the leadership over the past 2 years that I didn't. But it seems as if moving forward, I will get that leadership, and I will do my best to work with my colleagues, the teachers and staff with the Fairfax School District. As of now, I have deleted Facebook, and I agree not to make any posts in regards to Facebook. And I have also been in contact with the superintendent to make sure anything that I do, he's well aware of. And if he has any recommendations for us to move forward as a team together, that's what I'm looking forward to. So I really would like to thank the teachers, who I worked with when I started Fairfax. And I also would like to thank the teachers who supported me when I was a basketball coach by helping buy shoes and uniforms, help with barbecues and things like that for my students. Again, I would also like to thank the MOT staff for sponsoring me to become a bus driver. And, I thank all of the people that reached out to me, when I was down and out and sick. There's continuous support from a lot of staff. I receive emails and phone calls, and what I do is try to share those. But I will make sure that it's made aware that if someone sends me an email or they have a comment, please, and I'm asking you to please direct those comments to the superintendent so that it does not result in a violation of 9005.1 and that the superintendent is allowed to do his
Just
duty.
so you don't put me in a bad situation here, we're over 3 minutes. Ms. Rios, do you want to grant another 2 minutes to Mr. Moland, or are we staying with our 3 minutes?
Yes, 2 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Moland.
Thank you, Ms. Rios, Madam Rios, for granting me those 2 minutes. Again, I look forward to attending as many trainings as possible to grow with the district and grow with both the CSEA staff and the KFTA staff and with the administrative staff. And, I think this is a very important time. Our country is going through a pandemic, and I think it's very important that we stick together. And I thank you guys all that have invited me to your classroom, who have invited me to your campuses. And I'll make sure to make progress and try to take this as constructive criticism. And if I've hurt anybody or said anything to anybody, I do apologize. It has not been intentional. It's just I have not had any training from our mentorship from the colleagues prior to, but I look forward to getting that training and getting that mentorship and us moving forward. And I thank you guys for your consideration and your comments and concerns. Thank you.
Okay. There was one more, actually two more now for comment. Let's see here. Allowed to talk. There we go. Sorry, we're new here. It was Mr. Moreno was first, and then Mr. Walker wanted to chime back in. Mr. Moreno? Mr. Moreno?
As luck would have it, are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Well, my comments on this is that, a cheetah never changes its spots, and a liar will always remain a liar. I asked this board to consider the last 2 years of Mr. Palmer's behavior, and I believe there was sufficient time and opportunity for him to change his ways, but intentionally he didn't. As what was stated earlier, the evidence is on the table. The district invested significant amount of money to conduct a third-party investigation so that this board has all the evidence in front of them that they need to take appropriate action. I caution you, and I strongly caution you, that you should take the right action and approve this resolution. There is no other way around it based on the evidence that's been presented in front of you. Again, you have a fiduciary responsibility to everyone on this line, every person, every community member in this district, and every employee that you employ. You cannot walk away today without approving this resolution. So I encourage you, read through the facts, don't take into consideration any last minute plea that's being given to this board. You have 2 years of experience with this person to realize that he is unfit and he is unstable to remain on this board, let alone be the president of this district. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gaitan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yo soy Laura Gaitán. Yo he trabajado por el distrito por ya 12 años y además de eso yo fui un estudiante por distrito desde kindergarten hasta el 7 grados y yo siempre he tenido un gran amor para el distrito y les pido a la mesa directiva que tomen toda la evidencia que está en la mesa. El señor Mullen ha sido muy disrespectful a mis compañeras del distrito y es bien troubling mirar a mis compañeras allí pasando por cosas así. Y les sugiero que piensen por los empleados y de los estudiantes. Gracias. That's it.
Alma, would you kind of give us what that statement was in English for those of us that don't speak Spanish?
Oh, well, she was just saying that she feels, well, how can I say it? that she feels sad how Mr. Mullen have been treating her friends. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right.
And do the right thing for the kids and the teachers and everybody. That's what she's pleading.
Okay.
¿Puedo decir en inglés?
Yeah, you can say it.
My name is Laura Gayton. I'm currently the school secretary. I've been working for the school district for just a little over 12 years. And besides that, I've been a student there since kindergarten all the way to 7th grade. And to this day, I will
swear that Fairfax School District is the best school district out there. But at this time, I would like to ask the board to really take into consideration the employees and the students of the district. It's really troubling to see my coworkers in the district office and other coworkers go through these type of problems when really they're really unnecessary. And I just like to, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Katan. Okay, and then one last, oh, two more, sorry. Dave Walker is up, and then we have another one that popped up. Go ahead, Dave.
Am I coming through?
Yes.
Okay. Again, KFTA represents the certificated staff of our district. And once again, we are asking you to vote to accept this resolution of the censure of Trustee Palmer Mullen for the behavior that has been demonstrated by him in the last couple of years. Again, we're asking that you vote yes to accept this to the voting members of the board. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Lauren Saavedra. Oops, hold on here, Lauren. All right, made it. I knew this was going to happen one time. Hold on for a second. Change the roll. Where'd Lauren go? Raise your hand again, Lauren. Can't find you. There you are. There we go. Okay, go ahead and talk, Laura. Lauren. You're muted.
There we go.
Yep.
My name is Lauren Saavedra. I teach kindergarten over at Zephyr Lane. And I've worked for Fairfax for it's my 5th year. I love Fairfax. I have worked at many other districts as a sub and doing other miscellaneous things through my career. And I love Fairfax. I would never leave. I love the family aspect we have at Fairfax and how everybody helps one another and makes everyone feel so part of a family there. I knew it was the district for me from the very first day I was there. I really, really, really hope and plead from the bottom of my heart that the board really really thinks about this and passes the censure. I personally have had issues with Mr. Palmer on social media with my name and picture being used. And it was very disheartening to know that somebody who oversees our daily in and outs and tries to help us is using that as a way to target us and target people in our district. I really hope that everyone in the board really reads the censure and reads the investigator notes and really takes that into consideration before making a decision, because I know there's a couple new people and this is a big decision to make on your very first time being in a board. So I really, really, really hope that this is something that you take seriously and really listen to the pleas of the people and the employees of our district and take that for what that is. And that's all I really have to say about it.
Thank you, Lauren. And as of right now, there are no other hands raised in the attendees. And so with that, Ms. Rios, is it okay that we close the public comment?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll be closing the public hearing at 5:40 p.m. Continuing to read from the script from Ms. Rios, are there any comments or changes or additions to the resolution from members of the board other than Mr. Moland?
Are we voting right now or?
Right now, they're asking, or you're asking if there are any changes or additions to the resolution. Mr. Tapia, do you have any changes or additions?
No.
No? Okay.
Are we gonna put it to a vote, or how is it gonna work?
Yes, as soon as we know that there's no changes or additions, then the next, your next action is to call for a motion. So, I guess not hearing any members changing or calling for any changes or additions to the resolution. I guess, Ms. Rios, are you wanting to call for a motion?
Yes, I would like to call for my motion, yes, for a motion.
Okay.
So I say my motion first, or they could say it,
Yeah, you can offer a motion.
or I could ask them for a motion.
Correct. Any of the board members except for Mr. Mullen may offer a motion. Are you off?
I so move that we vote on the issue with Mr. Mullen.
So I have Virginia Lawson making a motion to approve resolution, the resolution as attached, as read, correct?
Thank you. Perfect. Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second the motion to adopt the
me-
resolution.
For me, no.
Motion.
For me, no motion.
Okay, so you did not make a motion, I understand.
Okay.
I have a first motion from Victoria, for Virginia Lawson. I have a second to that motion from Victoria Coronel. So there is a motion and a second. Ms. Rios, are you going to call for a vote?
And Tapia, what did he say?
Well, at this point in time, are you calling for a vote, Mrs. Rios? Do you want the board to vote?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like the motion, yes. Like for me, the motion is no.
Okay, so you are voting no, Ms. Rios, correct?
Yes, correct. The
Okay.
answer is no.
Okay. Mr. Tapia,
No motion.
you're not going to vote, or are you voting no?
No. No motion.
You're voting no on the you're voting no, correct? Or you're not voting, or you're voting no? I don't know which, I'm confused.
Yeah. I'm voting no.
Voting no, thank you. All right, so I have a vote for Virginia Lawson. Are you a yes or a no?
Yes.
And I have a vote for Cornell. Are you a yes or a no?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a split vote yes and no and no. I believe that the motion then is split, and Mr. Herndon, correct me if I'm wrong, but the motion fails on a tie vote?
That's correct, Mr. Coleman. You'd need at least 3 affirmative votes to pass the resolution.
So we have and that's going to show up as a 2-2 and a does not pass on the minutes. Okay, so with that, that issue is concluded, unless there's anything else on that item. Good. All right. I'd like to thank the attorneys for being here tonight. I appreciate you spending some time in your off hours, and I'm sure that the bill will be fun. enjoy the rest of your night. All right.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Okay, Mr. Mullen, we are back, and we are, if it's okay, I'm going to continue with recognition section. I'll be quick since this is taking a little bit of time. Tonight, I just want to say that, the holiday times are difficult for a number of people, more so this year than most. I'd like to just recognize those employees and people in our district that are working really to make it a little bit easier for those families in our district. We have a number of people, and I'm sure that if I tried to name them all, I would miss people. So I'm just going to say, the site front office staffs, the counselors, the entire Fairfax family, you've been reaching out to those in need and providing food, gifts. I just thank you. And you need to be recognized that, you know, you're hired to do a job, and what you all do is remarkable, more than what your basic job is. And so, you know, your empathy and compassion never fails to amaze me. It is, I just want to say thank you and recognize all the work that our employees are doing to make it just a little easier for people within our district. Mr. Quintero and the PERC staff, parents, you know, you're playing a big role. So I want to recognize just that effort out there. To our health staff, I know that Nurse Kelly is kind of the face, so to speak, but our health staff is a huge resource, not only to the students and families who are out there right now struggling with what we're going through, but our staff as well. And I can speak, I know that Kelly probably gets calls even when we're off and not, with people not coming into work maybe daily, and people are a little bit worried about what, you know, they're finding in their own personal lives, and Kelly's having to, you know, and other nurses are you know, taking the calls and kind of walking them through things and giving them good advice. And so I know it's been of recent, but I think it's just important that we recognize our health staff, Nurse Kelly and all of the crew, for all the work that you do. And so Kelly, you know, again, I'm going to give you another plaque just because, you know, my understanding is you have to have 2 doses of this new vaccine. So we're going to give you 2 plaques, you know, and make sure that you're recognized accordingly for the work that you do. So thank you so much for the work that you do. In regards to my superintendent's report, just let the board know that our engagement for this last period, the last few weeks, has been on an average of about 79%. We have a high of, believe it or not, junior high. Beat out the #1 engagement in the district right now in kids is 81.87% with junior high. So congratulations to Wendy and everybody at the junior high. And it goes down to Zephyr Lane at 81.11. Virginia Avenue at 79.66, and then Shirley Lane 77.41. Our total enrollment is at 2627. Hold on, I just got a text from Kelly, and I want to make sure I didn't see that wrong. Oh, you're welcome. Anyway, our perk right now, we can see that our families receiving food gift cards earlier, before an update that I did not get this updated, was 46 total, but I understand that to be rounding up to the 90s now, according to Mr. Quintero, if I'm right. There are families receiving assistance through hotspots. We provide hotspots, Spectrum and Verizon iPads. We right now 211, and there are a few, from what I'm understanding, ready to come and try to pick up additional hotspots. Our Toys for Tots signups started early December 2nd, and we're almost a little over 100 participants in Toys for Tots signups. The Friday this coming Friday is the last day before the Christmas break. Our school resumes on January 4th. Tentatively, we are returning to on-campus instruction on January 19th. That's what we announced when we went off of on-campus instruction. Of course, we always have to play that with the surrounding conditions of the health of our staff and students and communities. So right now, unless we know anything, as we get to know other things, it's January 19th. The end of the second quarter is January 8th, 2021. And so our sites are pretty busy right now, even though you may not see it. Shirley Lane, for example, held their school site council elections. There are many different online learning challenges happening. Their Canvas creative teams are getting third quarter set up. The December student of the month is getting ready to be posted, so I can't announce that right now. And Santa, forget the weather, he's going to show up reading to kindergartens and first graders. Believe it or not, they have Zoom at the North Pole. So we're going to be they're going to be getting to meet Santa via Zoom. Zephyr Lane also has completed their school site council meeting. Their ZLE, their tree farm is up. Students are encouraged to come and pick up supplies from outside the school office and decorated ornament to add to the trees. Santa Mrs. Claus video created by community volunteers wishing ZLE students a Merry Christmas. They're holding virtual Friday rallies weekly. They're awarded for reading, attendance, STEM, and overall effort. There's a drive-through hot chocolate and candy cane event this Friday from 9 a.m. to 9:30. Let's see here. VA, again, they've started their SSC meetings, school site councils. Homework assistance for K-6, 2:45 to 6 via Zoom with help from the ACES program. Hands-on migrant cooking family activity with ingredients provided upon return from break. What else here? Also having a big perfect attendance rally on Friday. Numerous grand prizes for students with perfect attendance in each grade level and school-wide. Again, Santa's FaceTiming. Santa's in with it with the technology this year. It's good stuff. Festive Friday with Friends edible decorating activity is on Friday. Special ed, pre-K, and TK. And a VA Adopt a Family program continued this year, helping numerous families who have fallen on hard times. ACES 21st Century, returning to full distance learning, students have continued to attend in their hangouts, arts, crafts, story times, game time, homework help, social time, all included. Students periodically pick up materials and resources to complete fun hands-on projects. 21st Century is offering homework Zoom hotline. 21st and ACES are calling ACES families on a weekly basis to check in on students and families, make sure families' needs are met. Parents have been appreciative. VA ACES staff organized a letter to Santa drop-off. So the big guy will be making an appearance and reading some of the letters during the hangout. The Migrant Extended Day for preschool through 8th grade continues. Teachers are using stories from the Culturally Responsive Latin Hispanic Library Collection. Shout out to Mrs. Finucchi's class and their students written and produced iMovie. Scholastic magazines for all migrant students are available for pickup in the perk. Parents have been participating in a series of workshops offered through the county office. All migrant families were invited to attend. So that is my recognition and superintendent's report, Mr. Mullen.
Thank you for that report. The next item on the agenda will be E2, the board report. I won't spend much time on it, but I did attend a 2-day CSBA workshop, and it was very, very informative, a lot of information learned. And one of the things that I found out while attending that workshop is a lot of schools are looking for additional space in classrooms. Some schools are turning their cafeterias into classrooms. They're turning any unused space into classrooms right now. So I learned a lot about the different areas of the school that could be used, that's unused space that can be used as classrooms. And so I will share on our next board meeting, since we have been in this one for a while, a lot of the other things that I learned, but I just do want to share that I did go to a 2-day CSBA workshop, and I like to thank Mr. Coleman for enrolling me in that workshop.
Okay.
I have no further report.
All right, very good. Any other board member?
No.
Okay. You know what, Mr. Mullen, I apologize, but because we moved up some stuff, it was a little bit turbulent. And so this is just trying to catch up and make sure we don't miss anything. We need to approve the minutes on the agenda in the B section. We passed right over the approval of minutes. So if you could approve the minutes, B3 and 4, we would appreciate that.
I would like the approval of the minutes of B3, 2 and 3.
3 and 4, November 12th.
3 and
Yeah, the November 12th regular and special.
the regular and special minutes for the special and regular meeting from last month.
That's correct.
So first motion?
Okay.
Oh, second.
Who's providing the second?
I second that motion.
All right, Palmer. Thank you.
And I would like to do a roll call vote. Miss Victoria Cornell.
Can everything be repeated, please? Thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We're passing the minutes and the agenda, the minutes for the special meeting and the regular meeting from last month.
Right.
So there was the first motion by Alma Rios and there was a second by me. And now I'm calling for a roll call vote, starting with Miss Victoria Cornell. Yes or no?
I would like Mr. Tapia to go first, please.
Mr. Tapia, Mr. Jose Tapia, would you approve the minutes for the special and regular meeting, please?
Yes, I approve the minutes.
Thank you. Miss Alma Rios,
Yes.
Miss Virginia Lawson,
Yes.
Miss Victoria Cornell,
Yes.
Okay.
and that's a yes on me.
Okay. Thank you. So we're at consent now, Mr. Mullin.
Consent, I would like to approve the consent section. If there is no changes to the consent section, if we can approve F1, business and contracts, warrants and payroll, and financial report, basically everything in the consent section.
Yes.
Can I get a motion to approve everything in the consent section?
First motion.
Second.
Okay.
I'm going to do a roll call vote. Miss Victoria Cornell.
Who's the second, Mr. Mullin?
Me, I second.
Okay.
I first.
Okay, thank you.
Miss Victoria Cornell. Miss Virginia Lawson.
Yes.
Miss Alma Rios. Miss Alma Rios.
Yes.
Mr. Jose Tapia.
Yes.
Is Miss Cornell on mute?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having issues. Yeah, that's a yes for me.
Okay.
Thank you. That's 5-0.
Okay, very good. So we're at business and finance, section G.
Business and finance, section G. Is there any changes to the business and finance section in section G?
No, we're at G1, the budget first interim report and LCFF budget overview for parents. So if it's okay, we have a presentation for the board before you take your action on the first interim report.
Okay, we can go ahead with that.
Okay, Mr. Medina, go ahead and provide your report.
Mr. Coleman, it is saying that only you can share the screen. I don't mind if you do, if that makes it easier.
Let me see if I can't allow for all. There you go. You should be able to win starting with someone else.
Perfect.
You should be able to go now.
Oh my gosh. I have no idea why I'm struggling with this.
That's a new thing.
Oh gosh.
You want me to see if I can't share my screen?
Yeah, please, that would be great.
I'm gonna have to see if I can get to the agenda here real quick. Okay, let me see if I can't share the screen here. And everybody see my screen? So,
Yes.
okay, very good. So, John, I'll just kind of move it along and you do your business there. So there you go.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to be reporting on the district's first interim. Now, the first interim is one of 2 mid-year financial reviews that we're required to prepare by Ed Code. And this financial review looks at the current year as well as the 2 following years. And the first interim uses actual data that we've accrued through October 31st and uses that data to project to see how the district is going to finish the year. Now, the board is required to take action on the first interim, and the first interim report will be submitted to the county office for review and approval. Next slide, please. So before I get into the first interim details, I do want to talk about the state budget and what's happening at that level, because ultimately what happens at that level trickles down to us here at the district level. Now, one of the big headlines that you may have seen is that the state general fund revenues are up $13.1 billion as of mid-November. Now, that's due to personal income tax, sales taxes, and capital gains taxes all coming in much stronger than economists had projected back in June. So now the legislature has a couple different options of what they can choose to do with this $13 billion revenue. And this chart on the bottom right really shows what that possibility is. Now, the 2 columns to the left show the district or the state's budget as it's been enacted. And the columns to the right show what the legislature may do based on the LAO's revised forecasts. So the orange column shows the cost and what it costs to fund education statewide. So that's at about $91 billion. And the red columns indicate the funding that the state is obligated to provide through Proposition 98. And you can see there's a large disparity. There's about an $11 to $12 billion shortage in funding that you can see in the budget as enacted. And that's why the state rolled out deferrals, meaning that they're going to defer principal apportionments and districts aren't going to be receiving the cash that they're normally entitled to. We're going to be receiving the cash later and ultimately next fiscal year. So since the state has had a $13 billion windfall, the LAO estimates that about $4.5 billion of that could be allocated to schools, and ultimately that would close the amount of deferrals, and schools would end up receiving more of their entitlement this year. Now, groups such as School Services of California and FCMET are warning districts that while this is an option for the legislature to consider, they also need to remember that it may not happen just given the uncertainty in this year. As I mentioned, this $13.1 billion windfall by the state was gathered on information that came out as of mid-November. And since then, we've now fallen into a 3rd wave of COVID. We've got statewide stay-at-home orders, and we really don't know what the effect on state revenues is going to be. It's very possible that if we dip into another recession, this $13 billion could be wiped out. So again, School Services of California and FCMET are also reminding districts that given the uncertainty, we cannot plan to have deferrals reduced at this period. There's just too much uncertainty right now. So that's something that we have to keep in mind when we're crafting our own district level budgets. So next slide, please. Now I'm going to take you through kind of where we've been and all the way going back to May and explaining how we've gotten to where we are. So back in May, the governor released his budget proposal, and in it he included 10% reductions to LCFF funding and additional categorical reductions So in response to that, the district crafted a budget reduction plan. In it, we identified reducing expenditures in order for the district to remain fiscally stable given those cuts. Now, shortly after that, back on June 29th, the governor signed the final budget into law, and it took away most of those reductions, ended up providing a 0% COLA, but did restore funding for all of the categorical programs. So based on that final budget, in August, we brought revised budget to the board, and items were rescinded from that budget reduction plan. In addition, the learning continuity and attendance plan was also brought to the board, and that contained the revenues and expenditures surrounding the coronavirus relief funds. So that was all done back in August. So since then, the state and federal governments have released continuing guidance for the coronavirus relief funds, as well as the allowable uses of those funds. So we've continued to make small adjustments to our programs to maximize those dollars. Next slide, please. So now we'll get into the details of the first interim and specifically about unrestricted revenues. So LCFF revenues are up $43,000 just because our unduplicated percentage count is 0.6% higher than it was projected back at the July 1 budget. You'll see federal revenue is down by $50,000, and that's to acknowledge the movement of our Medi-Cal administrative activities being moved to the restricted side of the budget, and all of the associated expenditures with that program have also been moved over. So the net impact to the unrestricted side of our budget is zero. State revenue is up $1,000. Just the actual receipt from our state revenue or our state programs came in $1,000 above projections. But local revenue does have a larger bump of $267,000, and that's because of the insurance claim that we filed for the Virginia Avenue cafeteria fire. So this is the amount of money that we are anticipating receiving based on that claim. So that's what that acknowledges. There's one note that one bit of revenue that hasn't been included in this. Back earlier in the year, the state released a growth funding application for districts that were projecting increases in enrollment, and we were one of those districts. So this year we're being funded based on last year's attendance, but we had projected to have an increased enrollment. So the state wanted to acknowledge for districts that are growing, we don't want to fund you the same as last year. We acknowledge that you have increased costs, and they want to acknowledge that growth. So that's what we were eligible for, and we did apply. Now, we have not heard whether that application has been accepted or denied, but once we do, that will be reflected in our budget. So I did want to note that. Next slide, please. So now unrestricted expenditures overall are down about $484,000, and that's specifically due to a reduction in the amount of certificated substitutes that we're needing this year. With being on the distance learning program and also using coronavirus relief funds and maximizing those dollars, we're really seeing a decrease in the amount of certificated substitutes that we've needed, as well as the associated statutory benefits. We have hired 6 additional teaching staff, but given the coronavirus relief guidelines, all of those teachers and the costs associated with those teachers have been able to be covered with the coronavirus relief funds. So that's the big influencer in those. Now, books and supplies are also down $105,000, and that's just due to the realities of our programs costing less with students in a mostly distance learning environment. Services and other operating expenditures are up about $25,000, and that's acknowledging the fact that we're going to have to end up doing a TRAN, which is a tax revenue anticipation note. We are anticipating a cash shortfall, so we're going to need to seek short-term financing, and the fees associated with that have been budgeted in this line, and that's why we're showing an increase. But overall, expenditures are down $484,000. Next slide, please. So then that brings us to our transfers out and contributions to restricted programs. We are anticipating that the cafeteria fund is going to require a support in the amount of $654,000 just to continue food service operations this year. As a result of COVID and as a result of operating on a distance learning platform, our participation rate in our lunch programs have severely decreased. On average, every month that we operate on a full distance learning program, our participation drops from our average of 85% all the way down into the 30% range. And that ends up resulting in the general fund having to contribute about $130,000 every month just to keep these programs running. Now, when we operate in an AM/PM program, the participation rate increases back up into the 70% range. So the program is self-sustaining, but we are looking based on the amount of months that we're projecting and anticipating being on distance learning. The cafeteria fund is going to need about $650,000 in support. Now, contributions are projected to be down $209,000, and that's again just acknowledging that our special education Title I programs are costing less with students in a distance learning environment. So that's really what that's acknowledging. Next slide, please. So that brings us to our unrestricted ending fund balance. With all the changes, we're now expecting an increase in ending fund balance of $1.4 million and to ultimately have a fund balance of $6.5 million. The $6.5 million as a reserve percentage is 18.2%, and that is right in line with the Government Finance Officers Association's recommendations of recommended reserves. I do want to note that fund balance is not cash. While cash is included and it's a part of fund balance, the fund balance is really just a net position of the fund at a given moment in time, but it itself is not cash. And I do want to touch again on the $1.4 million increase. We're not the only district that is having this happen. We're increasing by $1.4 million. Really predominantly because it's just costing us less to operate our programs in this distance learning environment. All of our neighboring districts are also seeing the same trend happen, as are most of the districts up and down the state of California. And again, advice from School Services of California has come in the form of letting us know that we're not anticipating, and there is no current legislation out to provide additional coronavirus relief funds. All the money that we've been received and that was allocated back in March and April earlier in the year, that's been delivered to our districts now, and we're not anticipating receiving more. So going forward, it's going to fall to the unrestricted ending fund balance to continue operating these programs in the COVID environment. We cannot anticipate receiving new funding at this time. So next slide, please. So now that brings us to our multi-year projections. Now, specifically looking at the revenue, we're looking, and some of the factors that go into play when looking at the multi-years are the changes to revenue. We're looking at what is our unduplicated percentage going to do, what's happening to our enrollment in our ADA, what's happening to our other federal revenues in the programs that may be causing changes. So you will see LCFF revenue decreasing consecutively in 2 years. And that's due to two main factors. Number one, our unduplicated count is decreasing. And number two, we are currently in the middle of a declining enrollment trend that we're noticing because of COVID. Our kindergarten class is down 50 students. And as long as COVID persists, we really anticipate this trend to continue. The parents of first-time students are really hesitating in bringing their first-time students into school in a COVID environment. So that's something we have to acknowledge. Another large change is for other local revenue. We're seeing revenue drop from $522,000 down to $254,000, and that's due to the one-time insurance claim monies rolling off. But overall, the trend I want you to see here is that unrestricted revenue is decreasing over the 3 years, and on average, $500,000 per year. Next slide, please. Now, when looking at our expenditures for the multi-year projections, I wanted you to know that we've included various factors. We know that we're going to have increased costs for step and column. We know health and welfare costs are going to increase. There are already increases to STRS and PERS rates that have been announced, and adjustments to any other statutory benefits. Looking at 21-22, the board has already approved the rescinded items, and so those have also been included in next year. But ultimately, the trend I want to show here is that meanwhile, expenditures are increasing in each of these 3 years. So we have a trend where over these next 3 years, unrestricted revenues decreasing, while unrestricted expenditures are increasing. Next slide, please. And that's really shown best here in this slide. So we talked about this year where we're showing a $1.4 million increase to ending fund balance. Now, as additional expenditures are worked into the budget next year, as budget items from the budget reduction plan are brought back, we're seeing an increase of $323,000 in 21-22. But by 22-23, the decreasing revenues and increasing costs really come to head, and we're now seeing a $148,000 decrease to ending fund balance. Next slide, please. So now I do want to touch on cash flow, as that's going to be a big deal this year. I am projecting that the district will run out of cash by June, and that the district is going to have a $3.2 million cash shortfall, and we're going to have to figure out ways to bridge that. Again, this is just 100% due to the deferrals. The state is not going to be giving us our normal cash apportionments starting in February, lasting all the way until June. We're not going to receive that total cash, which ends up being just over $7.5 million. We're not going to see any of that until next year. So I mentioned we are looking at a shortfall of $3.2 million. So to mitigate that, I've identified $1.6 million available in other funds that we can use to bridge that gap. But that still leaves just over $1.5 million remaining that we're going to look to external sources to borrow. And that's where the tax revenue anticipation note comes in. I'm currently working with two different firms, and they're both going to use this first interim report and our projected cash flow to identify what our cash flow needs really are going to be. They're going to look at our payroll and see what cash do you need to pay payroll? What do you need to cover your utilities? And these conversations are going to be occurring here at the end of December and early January. And I will be bringing a resolution to the board in January that will officially begin the trans process so that we can be covered when this cash shortfall does end up coming and affecting the district later in the year.
So
Next slide.
Jonathan, we are still on track to receive the $5 million trans loan, correct?
So we're working with two firms right now, and they're going to determine it's going to be based on the first interim and our cash flow needs. We're going to be working with them to identify how much cash we do really need, and that's going to determine really on the resolutions how much we're going to need to borrow.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, I'm going to continue to monitor the national and state economies. As I mentioned earlier, what happens at those levels always and ultimately trickles down and affects our district operations. I'm going to continue to monitor cash closely. It's right around the corner. The deferrals are going to start in February, so I'm definitely going to have to monitor and really watch when we're spending our cash, where we're spending it. The 1920 final audit report will be brought to the board and presented in January, as well as the second interim, which is the second mid-year financial review, will be brought to the board in March. So that's what we have on the horizon. Next slide, please. So at this time, I recommend the approval of the first interim budget as it's presented. And that does conclude my presentation, and I welcome any questions that the board may have at this time.
I don't have any questions. I recommend the board approving the first interim as presented.
First motion.
Second.
Okay, we need a roll call vote. So Mr. Mullen?
Miss Victoria Cornell,
That's a yes for me.
Miss Virginia Lawson,
Yes.
Second.
Yes.
that's a yes for me, Palmer Mullen, Miss Alma Rios,
Yes.
Mr. Jose Luis Tapia.
Yes.
Very good.
Next on the agenda, we have the next regular board meeting set for January 14th, 2021.
No, sir. The next the item is for Resolution 2107, the annual accounting of development fees, item G2.
Hold on. One sec. G2, okay. The resolution for the annual accounting of the development fees for 2019 and 2020 fiscal year. This is a voting item.
First motion.
Second,
I'm sorry, what was the voting item on?
it's on the resolution.
I didn't hear you finish.
I'm sorry. It's recommended that the board adopt the resolution 2020-07, the annual accounting of development fees for 2019 and 2020 fiscal year resolution as presented.
Okay. Did you guys already have a first motion?
I got a first motion from Ms. Rios.
I'll second that.
And I got a second by Ms. Cornell. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Do I need to do a roll call vote?
You do on every vote while we're virtual, so yes, we do.
Ms. Victoria Cornell,
Aye.
Ms. Virginia Lawson,
Aye.
Mr. Palmer Mullins, a yes. Ms. Alma Rios,
Yes. Aye.
Mr. Jose Luis Tapia.
Aye.
Next on the agenda, we have the School Site Booster Club 2019-2020 financial review, which is a discussion item.
Yes, Mr. Mullen, we provided the financial reviews of each school site's booster club. The board does not have oversight on the booster clubs. They do on the ASBs, and the ASBs are typically audited by our district auditor. The booster clubs are not. And so the only requirement from booster clubs by the board is to provide an annual accounting, which was before the board on your attachments for the agenda. If there are no questions from the board, then we can move on, or we can take questions as the board might have.
Is there any questions from any board members about the amount in any of the schools' booster club fund? If there's no questions, we can move on to the next item. I take that there's no questions. So the next item would be the 2019-2020 Williams Settlement Annual Report.
Yes, Mr. Mullen, every year due to the Williams settlement, the district is reviewed by an external team within the first, I think it's 8 weeks of school. And typically Shirley Lane, Fairfax, and Virginia Avenue are the 3 schools in the districts that get gets evaluated. Each of the evaluations were attached to the agenda for the board's review. Each of the sites received an exemplary rating. I'd like to congratulate each of the sites and MOT for keeping the sites well stocked with supplies, looking good. All of our, Mrs. Brown and Mr. Clark, and all of the administration and staff, teachers on the campuses, making sure that all of the kids have the necessary textbooks, instructional materials, as they do look at that as well. So we pass with flying colors, and if there are no questions, that is, again, just a board informational discussion item, and it was attached for your review.
I would like to congratulate all the schools on that report. Is there any board members that have any questions in regards to this report?
No questions.
No.
Okay. Very good.
If I'm correct,
Go on, sorry.
Oh, Jose, go ahead. Jose, did you have a question?
No, no questions.
If there's no questions, we'll go ahead and move on to the H, Educational Services, number 1, School District Overview, which also is a discussion item.
Yes, Mr. Mullen, tonight we put a district overview on the agenda mostly because we have a new board member, and we're happy to do that tonight. If the board or Mr. Tapia would like to, review the information and go over it individually with us, Mrs. Brown and Mr. Medina and myself, we can do that as well. It's really up to the board. If you'd like to spend the time to do that, we can, or we can do it individually with Mr. Tapia. Or bring it back next month. It's really just about timing. If you guys, it's about 2 hours, so it's up to you if you want to do this.
Let's go, if it's okay with the board, let's move that item to next month.
Sure, no problem. Thank you. We've already done the I, so all that is remaining, sir, is the board policy first readings.
So it is recommended that the board review the following board policies at first reading. So we do have some policies at first reading, and if there is any questions, I urge you to reach out to the superintendent. If there's questions or concerns or any changes that need to be made, that you reach out to him before we adopt them next month as second reading. And that's it for board policy first reading.
That is correct.
If
Yes.
there are no questions.
No questions.
All right. And
All right. Is that if there's no other special business and no other comments from the board members, I just would like to thank all the attendees for tonight's meeting. And I look forward to working with everybody on a positive note. And I just thank you guys all.
right on. So we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Is it at 6:28?
First motion.
Second.
Do the roll call, sir. Roll call.
Roll call, Miss Victoria Cornell.
Aye.
Miss Virginia Lawson.
Aye.
That's an aye for me, Mr. Palmer Mullen. Miss Alma Rios.
Aye.
Mr. Jose Luis Tapia.
Aye.
All right, that's 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you guys, everyone. If I don't see you, have a blessed Christmas, everyone.
Thank you. I'm missing my Girl Scout cookies.
I'm looking at my waist. I'm not.
All right.
You guys have a nice night.
You too.
Thank you.